Welcome to the Medical Ancillary Sales Podcast, your number one source for making money in the medical ancillary sector. Mike and Viv bring you the latest information from lab services, pharmacy, diagnostic testing, and so much more. The latest in ancillary services will be right around the corner. Welcoming the hosts of the Medical Ancillary Sales Podcast, here's Mike and Viv.
Hello and welcome to the Medical Ancillary Sales Podcast. I am your host, Michael Berg, and I'm joined as always by Vivian Hudson. How are you doing today, Viv?
I'm great, thanks, Mike. And we've had a few podcasts now where we've had some special guests, so I was thinking it's probably a good time to talk about a bit of sales strategy again. So what do you think, Mike?
Well, I know the number one thing that people struggle with in this business, and I think in our sector especially, because 99% of this sector seems to be independent sales reps. And there's a lot of awesome features to being an independent sales rep. I mean, you get to be your own boss, you make your own schedule, but the flip side of that is that demon can sometimes creep in, and that demon is procrastination. And so I wanted to talk a little bit to you, Viv, and just kind of spitball some ideas on what you've done in the past to combat procrastination, to keep yourself motivated to go out there in the field day after day. So, Viv, I didn't look at your list, you didn't look at mine, but I asked you to write out your top three. So why don't you give me your first one? Well, let's just spitball.
Well, a little bit of planning can go a long way. So when I first started out there, I actually made a small investment. I think it cost me like $100 or $200 to buy like a database of local physicians in my area that covered like the counties that I was calling on. And, you know, it was quite a big list, but it was a bit of a job, but I did take the time that, you know, I would spend half a day once a week where I would just work through that list. I would call the offices. I would find out if they were privately owned or hospital owned, because as we know, hospital owned physicians can often be a lot harder to target for some of these ancillary services. And then I would let them know that I was a new rep assigned to their area. And then I would ask them if they had like a strategy for seeing reps, like if there was a certain day or time. And then I would make a note of that. And sometimes I went to a lot of the smaller towns around. And what that enabled me to do was sometimes I might have a 1 or 2 hour drive to get to some of these places. But because I'd done that pre-planning, I could be fairly confident that if I had 10 calls lined up, that I'd probably get in front of like about 8 doctors. And anybody that's out there doing medical sales, 8 out of 10 is pretty darn good. So it really did pay to put in that bit of time, even though it was a bit of a drag phone call after phone call, to do that, because it really helped me to, you know, get in front of doctors, you know, and be more time efficient. And I know that you've probably got some more to add to that, Mike.
Well, absolutely. I mean, when you are having success getting in front of doctors, that's going to keep you motivated right there. I know for me, my number one tactic that I use to keep myself motivated and to keep myself from procrastinating is to write down my goals, write everything down. So I start at the beginning of the week on Sunday with what are the goals I want to accomplish. And I use my calendar a lot. Because I share my calendar with you. I write a lot of things on my calendar. So even if it's a mundane task, instead of just sticking it on a to-do list, and then that ends up being Friday afternoon, and you still haven't done it, I'll put a specific time when I know I might be free, where I could complete that task. Maybe it's following up with that doctor. Maybe it's getting that one pager out to that office manager who asked for some more information. I'll put it right on my calendar. I'll just schedule 15 minutes. 15 minutes from 2:30 to 2:45 on Tuesday, I'm going to take care of that task. And I find I can actually, because my calendar, of course, is synced in with my phone, and I get the alerts, and okay, it's time to do the next task. And one way or another, I get these things done. So
Yeah.
that wasn't the smoothest delivery,
No,
but
I think
uh,
you did great. But absolutely, using your devices is absolutely such a great tool now, because especially with the reminders and that you can get. I know that sometimes if I write it down on, in a book or whatever, you move on to the book, 5 or 10 pages down, or sometimes diaries just aren't big enough. That adding stuff into your electronic calendar, has that double benefit of being able to remind you to do things as well without you having to look at it. So, and especially when you're driving around, it's easy to make some of those extra calls then as well. So I think that's a great tip.
okay, so give me one more, Viv. That's the ball's in your court now. Give me another tip for avoiding the dreaded procrastination or keeping yourself motivated.
Well, I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were talking about, being in sales and, having to do that kind of door to door kind of thing. And, one of the things that they said, it's like the hardest thing was just getting out of the car. And I remember having those moments myself, and I kind of like pull up to an office, particularly one that I hadn't been there before. And I just look at it as a new opportunity each time. And, some days, you can go home feeling really defeated if you let it, because you might have called on 20 doctors or whatever and, gotten turned away, pretty much every time. And the one or two doctors that you did get in front of, they weren't interested. And you kind of go home and you just go, what in the world am I doing? Why am I here? And really, each day is a new beginning, and each office, particularly if you have not been there before, is a new opportunity. And I would just look at it. Well, I don't know if this is going to be my lottery ticket, and I would look at it that way, and that would just give me that bit of extra excitement and enthusiasm to go in there when I talk to that particular office.
That's great. I know for me, I have as my number two method to find friends in this business and to just to have people to commiserate with when you do have when you do have those days. I know I have about a half a dozen people that I'll shoot the breeze with every once in a while, and whether I have something really exciting to talk about or something really dreadful to talk about, or sometimes somebody really dreadful to talk about in this business, it's good to it's good to have those friends and people to lean on, because they'll pick you up when you do have. I mean, this business can really can be tough at times because it's thankless and there is no safety net, and just having that support system of people that can pull you out of the doldrums when maybe you are feeling that procrastination set in. Make friends with some people who are successful in this business, and just call them up every once in a while. And how you doing? What are you seeing out there in the field? What do you do? How are you conducting yourself out in the field? How are you setting up your day and everything? And just hearing it from other people motivates me to get back out there. Viv,
Yeah.
your final one.
Well, I kind of just want to add to that, because I actually I got to that point where I just thought, who else can help me out here? And if I saw another rep in an office, I'd just strike up a conversation, find out a little bit what they were doing, and let them know what I did. And I kind of would ask them, well, who do you know that, like, which doctors are into ancillaries, which doctors are looking into growing their practice? And they would give you that information, and they would tell you the office manager's name and the good times to go there. And that was, that's just kind of adding on to what you were saying, is like, it's not only good to have other people to commiserate with, but they can be a valuable resource for information. So definitely, I would always recommend just strike up a conversation with other sales reps out there, and it gives you, when you have a little bit of intel into an office before you walk in there, it gives you that sense that you do have that upper hand of perhaps knowing a little bit more than if you hadn't had that conversation, so that you can be a little bit more confident about how you approach them. So
Amen.
that's yeah, that was really a winner for me. So what about you, Mike?
Oh, you ready for my number three here? I'm
Yeah, I
going
want to
right
hear
from
your
two to
number
three.
three.
Okay. So my last
Okay.
Yeah, you want to put the cherry on top. I can see. Okay, it better be good. That's all I'm saying. For me, it's to reward yourself. And really, one of the mistakes I used to do is I would always dangle that carrot out there for myself, but it can't really be results oriented because in this business, there's so much that you can't control. I reward myself based on completing tasks that I can control. So if I'm out in the field, maybe it could be something simple like maybe I want to go out and see some movie I've been wanting to see, or I want to go to the winery with my girlfriend or something. Whatever it is, I'll tell myself if I do the fundamentals, stick to the fundamentals. Okay, that's 20 sales calls a day. That's 100 sales calls this week, and that's making X amount of presentations. Those are things I know I can control. So I'll track those things during the week and then reward yourself at the end of the week. And that's how you instill good habits. And then the results will end up coming.
Absolutely. And just, knowing that it's a numbers game, if you need to get in front of 100 doctors to get, 5 to 10 doctors that are interested in hearing about your product a second time, then that if you do that every week, then you're going to have 5 to 10 doctors each week that are going to become your key call points to build your list moving forward. But I mean, I'd even just say just taking the time to pause and even acknowledge yourself. It doesn't always have to be something physical that you do, but I think, in life, particularly if you're very driven, it's very easy to say, right, I've done that. What's the next thing? But just even to pause, pat yourself on the back, whether you do it literally or physically, is just important to say, look, I did a really good job on that sales call, and I'm definitely going to go back to that office, and taking that moment to reflect after each office visit to think what went well or what could I have done better, and knowing that you can learn from that as well. I think that's all valuable points that sometimes in life we can just rush through things and not necessarily pick up on some of those things. So that can make a big difference to your day, definitely.
Absolutely. So bring us on home. Bring you the final point.
The final point, but there's more. So, I kind of think I covered what I wanted to talk about, Mike. So,
okay.
About it being a numbers game and then leveraging off your other reps and having a look at every day as being or even every office as being a new opportunity. I mean, they were just all.
Well, I'm going to add a bonus one then because I was going to throw this in, but I wasn't sure if you were going to throw it in there. But that's especially if you're newer in this business. I know everybody's goal as well. I want to get 1,000 lab samples in a month and 100 allergy patients in a month and everything else. And those are all great goals, but set some incremental goals for yourself and don't worry about hitting 1,000 lab samples in your first month. Worry about what is the first step to getting 1,000 samples, and just worry about taking proactive measures to complete those tasks that get you at least on the way. At least you're taking the first step toward that goal. And if you're just always making incremental improvements and look at the small picture as opposed to the big picture, and just look to see what could you do this week to get yourself closer to that goal, then I find myself being way more motivated than if I just look at way off in the distance. There's those 1,000 lab samples, and there's those 100 allergy patients, and there's all those other patients where I'm going to be making the big money. It just seems so far off. But if you do the fundamentals and you do that for a few weeks, you'll be surprised how much further ahead you are. And,
absolutely. And as you say, it's breaking down into those little action steps. And I could probably do a podcast on that another day. So.
Oh, good. We got our topic.
Yep. There we go.
Perfect. Well, Viv, thank you for your insight as always. And as you guys haven't figured out, Viv is one of those people who's in my inner circle of people that I do commiserate with. So it's nice to put it down on, for the ages here. This is recorded. Our great-great-grandkids are going to listen to us wax poetic on our sales philosophy. So.
And they're going to go, that was cheesy.
Yeah.
All right, Mark.
Okay.
Well, it's been a pleasure as always, and if anybody wants to contact us, then they can email us at
Ancillary podcast at gmail.com. I'm stealing your thunder. Okay, take care, everyone.